Right. So we're going to be talking about Enron, a company that was at one point the seventh largest corporation in the US, and then ended up as being ended up in the center of the biggest scam in US history. Enron, the company itself, revolutionized trading and the energy market, and appeared to outsmart pretty much all of its competitors time and time again. They started out as a small energy supply company, mainly focused on dealing natural gas. Over time, however, Enron then moved on to trading, making energy deals, broadband, and even trading on the weather. The firm itself was Wall Street's favorite. It was the company that seemed to be absolutely invincible, and the company whose stock kept on rising and rising no matter what happened. Targets were always surpassed or met at the least, and there was never any question that anything could potentially ever go wrong with this company. Moreover, Enron was very well connected politically. It was the biggest single contributor to George W. Bush's campaign, and the relationship between the administration and Enron itself was so close that George W. Bush himself used to call Kenneth Lay, the founder of Enron, by the name of Kenny Boy. By the end of 2001, however, the truth slowly started to come to light, and it was revealed that Enron was nothing more than a massive scam that was filled with lies, built upon lies and supported by political manipulation. The company, which was once loved by both Wall Street and the public, soon after turned into a showcase image for corporate greed.
Now, let's talk about conflicts of interest in the Enron case. Conflicts of interest are a situation in which a person is in a position to derive personal benefit from actions or decisions made in their official capacity. There were many of these examples in the Enron case. A clear example of a conflict of interest is the price of electricity that Enron had the power to change on purpose. A decrease in the supply of electricity would inevitably increase the price of electricity to the consumers. So what people at Enron did was to shut off entire electric plants in order to create this artificial shortage. What happened next is that they sold all of the electricity that they could and in turn profited greatly from this. This was a very unethical thing to do because many Californian citizens suffered from shortages and wildfires because of this. Another example is how ratings for Enron given by rating agencies turned out to be everything but precise. Enron was a very risky company, but despite that, many rating agencies and analysts called it a strong buy. Despite the independence of sell-side institutions and the variance in their techniques, nearly every sell-side analyst reached the same conclusions about Enron in 2001, right before Enron's bankruptcy on December 2nd, 2001. As of October 18th, 2001, all 15 analysts tracked by Thomson Financial rated Enron a buy, and 12 out of the 15 called it a strong buy. Even as late as November 8, the date of Enron's disclosure that nearly 5 years of earnings would have to be recalculated, 11 of the 15 recommended buying the stock.
Let's move on to the second conflict of interest or moral hazard between Enron and its auditor, Arthur Andersen. During this period between 1985 to 2000, Enron has boosted its revenue by $100 billion. And it was audited by the firm Arthur Andersen, one of the big five accounting firms at that time, who served Enron for 16 years. Now, according to the court documents, Enron and Arthur Andersen had improperly categorized hundreds of billions of dollars as increases in shareholder equity, thereby misrepresenting the true value of the corporation. Arthur Andersen also did not follow the generally accepted principles when it considered Enron's dealings with related partnerships. These dealings helped Enron to cancel many of these losses. Arthur Andersen was also accused of destroying thousands of Enron's documents that included not only the physical documents, but also company emails. So why did this happen? Because as an auditor, you are hired by your client, in this case Enron. If you don't agree with Enron's accounting standards, he would probably go to another accounting firm. And you can see in this case with the 16 years long term relationship, it's very easy to imagine that how they were able to cook the book for Enron.
Kenneth Lay, as chairman and CEO of Enron, had one goal. That is to make as much money as possible for himself. He didn't necessarily care about the financial health of the company, but instead he only cared about the firm's bottom line, because that's where he'll receive higher bonuses and higher compensation. And of course he cared about the value of the stock. This documentary outlines several examples of how Lay's financial ambitions led to foul play and to his unethical methods to achieve his goals. I think that a critical moment in Enron's history was when Lay discovered that his traders were earning abnormally higher profits, although many suspect that he already knew this from the start. What he could have done in this situation was to fire these employees and set an example to encourage others to trade within the rules. Instead, he made a very different decision of telling them to keep making us millions. This is an example of how Lay created an internal culture that incentivized this type of behavior and incentivized internal competition. The competitive culture turned employees into machines that would only care about the quarterly profits, even if the profits weren't clean, as long as it looked clean. That is to say, the profits of the company may have seemed high due to hidden accounts, unjustified profits, and so on, but its actual cash flows told a very different story about the financial health. When the traders lost most of Enron's reserves, damaging their financial health, Lay needed to find a new method or new people who could help him make money and manufacture profits. This behavior represents a cycle in which Enron fakes their image, manufactures unsustainable profits, accumulates debts, and covers it up with fake accounts, and then creates new profits to cover up the debts, and so on. Lay also grew the energy business by targeting states with deregulated pricing for energy. The reason being that these products are very inelastic, so a large monopolistic corporation like Enron could take advantage of people, mainly the working class, by inventing reasons and making up market forces that push the price up. This goes further, and instead of just targeting states with deregulation, he even contributed to the deregulation through close relationships with very powerful people like President George Bush. Although Bush never admitted to doing anything regarding this, the fact is that he received financial and possibly strategic aid from Enron during his campaign. There are theories that Enron sabotaged Bush's opposing candidate. And in turn, Bush favored deregulation, giving Lay and his big friends in oil and gas more control over the energy market. Pretty much, Kenneth Lay's desire for money led him to encourage his fellow executives, his business partners, and his employees to take all kinds of shortcuts. On top of that, his contribution to the deregulation of the industry allowed him to invent profits and out of thin air without employees or shareholders finding out. Ultimately, he was ruthless. He didn't care about his employees, the working class Americans, or anyone else, and he would step on all of them in a second if it means that he would benefit personally from this.
Now let's analyze who was Geoffrey Skilling and what he did and what was the consequences of his actions for him and for the company. He was the former chief executive of Enron company, and basically his lies contributed to the sudden collapse of the company, and also to have country's most high-profile case of corporate fraud. And I will explain why he did. But to understand better what he did and why, we have to first see who was him and mainly his characteristic. So Jeff we can say that he was a nerd in the past before entering the company of Enron. So when he entered the company, he became super popular, and that popularity was a different experience for him, and it was for the first time that he was popular in the company, but also mainly in the Wall Street, that he didn't want to lose that popularity, so he could do anything to protect and defend this popularity and the
the success of the company, and well, he did take some actions, which was mainly we can call that as mark-to-market accounting that he did, which was basically showing more profits than the real. But what he did was also he was thinking that people are only motivated with money, and he was believing that for him, for them, for the people, the only important thing was money and the profits. And at the same time, he was thinking that he was the smartest guy in the room. As I mentioned before, that mark-to-market accounting, it was basically putting the profits which didn't realize yet. And from the movie, we can see the example of investment in India, that Jeffrey, he was basically hiding the financial losses and putting the profits that the company didn't get yet, which was mainly hiding losses and at the same time manipulating profits to show that company was doing well, but showing way well than the reality, which was the main problem. And it's bring the consequences of hypothetical future value result, that basically allowing future profits to write down at the day of the contract, since you don't get the profits right after a contract. And well, it was really a lie and a manipulation, and it was really way subjective. That was the main problem. And the consequences for also him was serving more than 12 years in prison, which was really crucial, we can say that. Well, from our class that we saw, and to, let's say, make a mix of both cases, we can say that he failed duty of care and loyalty, because he was thinking his profits and basically his interest first than the company. And so secondly, he didn't behave in the best interest of shareholders, which was the second main problem.
Talking about the CEOs of the Enron company, I would like to talk about Liu Pai, a Chinese-American businessman and former Enron executive. He was CEO of Enron Energy Service from March 1997 until January 2001, and CEO of Enron Accelerator, a venture capital division from Enron, from February 2001 until June 2001. He was the key skilling lieutenant to help building the trading business in round-to-round of Enron Energy Services. How he stated in one of the interviews, the EES is used to sell energy services to industrial end users. Skilling had a lot of trust to Liu Pai and expected him to give results. Everybody in the company considered him as a mysterious person and called him an invisible CEO, because nobody deeply understood his motivation and his final mission to work in Enron. He was extremely passionate about the money, and as many people thought, the only thing he loved was money and strippers. Talking about the Liu's passion to strippers, it was mentioned in a video that Pai was a frequent strip club visitor, and sometimes spent the money in strip clubs from Enron's expense account. He was there almost every night, taking some of the traders with him. Even sometimes from the money of Enron's expense account, he was bringing the strippers directly to his office and was spending his pleasure time there with them. Liu Pai has lost interest to run the EES as soon as the numbers got high enough, and after all, he just left the Enron with around $250 million because he sold all his stock of Enron after he divorced with his wife in order to marry a strip girl, as was said in the case. During his time with Enron, it led to an affair relationship with strippers. The early sale of Enron stock had the benefit of shielding Pai from the insider trading charges leveled against other Enron executives who had also secretly sold off large amounts of stock before the company ruinously financed were publicly known. Having all this money, he purchased the land in Colorado and became the second largest landowner in that region. Pai was not charged with any criminal wrongdoing in the Enron scandal and exercised his Fifth
amendment right in regard to the subsequent Enron class action lawsuit. However, as a result of the lawsuit, Pai forfeit $6 million to him from Enron insurance policy for a company officer to a fund for the Enron shareholders.